Ina alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. We're continuing with the hadith from Sahih Muslim. We spoke yesterday about the different punishments in Islam, different crimes that carry about different punishments. Again, the only three crimes that bring about the death penalty in Islam is adultery, apostation, and murder. Of course, you have to be judged, there has to be witnesses, and all of that. And that's what we're going to speak about today. Kitab el Ahdiya, which is the book relating to judicial decisions. How the judge will come about determining whether or not a person is guilty or innocent. These are hadiths addressing that. And let's start with the first part, this section here. In Islam, it is the defendant who should swear to prove his innocence. In Islam, if you are the person who is accused of doing the crime, it's up to you to prove your innocence. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said if the people were given according to their claims, they would claim the lives of people and their properties. But the oath must be taken by the defendant. So if a person accuses you of stealing, you have to swear that you are innocent. If a person accuses you of adultery, you have to swear to your innocence. If a person accuses you of slandering someone, you have to swear to your innocence. Okay? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam pronounced judgment on the basis of the oath taken by the defendant. And also the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when it came to the plaintiff, the person making the allegation, it's up to the plaintiff or the person who is making the allegation to not only swear that he's telling the truth, but he's the one who has to bring a witness. Does everybody get that? This is going to be on the quiz tomorrow. This is what I want you to walk away understanding from today's class. If you make an accusation against another person, you have to bring not only an oath swearing that you're telling the truth, but you have to bring a witness too. So if I'm going to accuse Sarah of stealing my car, I have to have a witness who also saw her steal the car. They actually saw her stealing it. And I'm going to swear an oath to the judge that I'm telling the truth. So the person making the accusation, the plaintiff, he has to not only give an oath, but he has to have a witness. The defendant, all that defendant has to do is swear an oath to prove his innocence. Does everybody understand that? Okay, very important. Also, judgment is to be pronounced with evidence. And one who is eloquent in his speech may oftentimes end up winning the case. And that's what happens here in America a lot. A lot of people who are guilty end up winning because they are more educated. They speak better. They're more eloquent in how they speak. The person that's not too educated, that doesn't have the money and education, ends up going to jail for something he didn't do. So we have to be careful of that. And the prophet is letting that be known to whoever is a judge. If you are judging a case, you have to understand that number one, before you make a decision to rule in favor of someone, you have to have evidence. And also be careful of those people who can speak well. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, oftentimes you come before me asking me to judge between you, in your disputes. Some of you are more eloquent in your speaking than others. So I may end up believing that eloquent person over the other and rule in your favor based on what I hear from you. But in reality, you're guilty. He said, I want those of you who do this to understand that if I rule in your favor, what I'm giving you is nothing but the hellfire. In other words, you're going to go to hell for lying. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I am a human being just like you are. I can't see the future. I can't tell who's telling the truth just like you can't. So oftentimes a person who's well articulate may come before me and plead his case and better than the other person who can't speak well, and I end up ruling in favor of the good speaker. He said, understand that if I do rule in favor of you and you are a liar, you will be receiving the hellfire. So the prophet said this as a warning to those of us, just like he couldn't tell if a person is lying or not, beware of that. Beware of that. Beware of the good speakers out there. There's a lot of people who are more articulate. There's a lot of people out there who can speak more eloquently, but they may be the biggest liars on earth. And I'm sure many of you know people like that. I know some people like that. They can speak so well. Their English is so beautiful and such beautiful accents and all that crap. And they're the biggest liars and swindlers you ever want to meet. Okay. Also, even women can give testimony. We have the hadith of Hind, who was the wife of Abu Sufyan. After the conquest of Mecca, the Quraysh all became Muslim. Hind converted to Islam too. And when the Prophet came into Mecca, she covered her face because she was so ashamed to see him, because remember, she was one of the biggest enemies against the Prophet. But she had a question she wanted to ask him. So she came before the Prophet, covered her face, and she said, I have a question. She said, my husband is a stingy man. He doesn't give me enough money to take care of myself and my kids. So what I do is I'll go and take as much as I need. She said, is this a sin for me? But if I don't take what I need, he won't give me enough because my husband is stingy. The Prophet recognized her voice, and he told her, he said, oh Hind, you don't have to cover your face for me. He said, don't be ashamed. He said, you are Muslim now. Everything that you did in the past, Allah has forgiven you of. He said, you are now my sister in Islam. So don't be ashamed to come to me and ask me about your new religion. And so he told her, if Abu Sufyan does not give you enough money, then yes, you can take what you need. Take just what you need, which is enough for you and your children. So here you can see that even a woman, can come and ask, on behalf of herself in Islam. And also you can see that you learn from this hadith that if you are married to a man who is stingy, there's nothing wrong with you writing out a check. If he's not giving you enough money each month to pay the bills and buy food for the kids and stuff, take his credit card and do it. Buy what you need yourself, but don't overdo it. Just buy what you need. You learn those two things from that hadith. Okay? Also, Islam teaches us that it is forbidden for us as Muslims to ask too many questions. If you're going to ask about things, ask the right questions. Don't be a fool. Don't be a smart behind. Ask what needs to be asked. Don't sit there and show off and try to ridicule people. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah likes three things and he hates three other things. He likes for us to worship him and to not associate partners with him. He also likes it when we hold on tight to the rope of Islam and not scatter ourselves. And what he hates for us to do is to speak nonsensical speech and to ask persistent questions about things that have no value. And he hates for us to waste money. So again, you learn from this hadith that as Muslims, we should avoid frivolous speech, talking about things that are not even relevant, and asking too many ridiculous questions and wasting our money. He doesn't like that. Okay. Also, in another hadith, one of the companions says that the Prophet said, Allah has forbidden for us to be disobedient to our parents. He's also forbidden for us to bury our daughters alive, which is what they used to do. If a person gave birth to a female child, they would bury it alive. This is forbidden in Islam. He said he also forbade from you the withholding of the rights of others, in spite of having the power to return to them what they need. And he hates for us to speak irrelevantly and to ask persistent questions and to waste money. So again, guys, we have to stay away from those things. Stay away from disrespecting our parents, killing our children, okay, taking from people and withholding what people need, and also, avoid asking a bunch of questions and wasting your money and all that. If you have to ask questions, ask the right questions. Don't sit there and just ask to be asking. I remember when I first made this website, a lot of people would come here just to ask questions, just to try to trick me up. And I used to tell them, you can sit here, as long as you guys sit here asking me questions and then I know the answers, I'm going to try to answer you. But if you're sitting here asking me questions just to try to catch me or trick me up, I told them, shame on you. You're going to answer to Allah, because all you're going to do is trick yourself up. All you're doing is showing what a fool you are. Don't do that, guys. And so many people do that. They want to, try to ask questions to trick the person up when you're really just tricking yourself. Okay? And for those of us who are legal bona fide judges, this is a serious responsibility. No one wants to be a judge. No God-fearing Muslim wants to be a judge, because the God-fearing Muslim understands the seriousness of that position. The judge is held accountable. Okay, no one wants that weight on them. But for those of us who are put in a situation of judging between others, and you're doing it for the sake of Allah, not for the fame, not for the money, and you're really trying to do what is right, Allah will reward you for that. But if you're one of those people who are judging because you're looking for fame, looking for money or whatever, then you're in a bad situation there. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when a judge gives a decision after trying his best to do it correctly and justly, he receives 2 rewards. But if he gives a judgment not doing that, then he will be held accountable for that. And also the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, if you are put in a position of judging amongst others, do not render a decision when you are angry. He said none of you should judge between 2 people when you are angry. Because if you're angry, you got shaitan there and you're going to end up making a bad decision. Okay? So to be a judge is a heavy responsibility. And very few people in knowledge like to be put in that situation. In fact, the companions hated it. When a person would come to them and ask them a question about Islam, they would get angry. They'd say, no, go to him, because they didn't want that responsibility. Nowadays, we got people wanting to be judges. Oh, I want people to come and ask me questions. You want people to think that you are a scholar. You want to sit around issuing fatwas on the internet and all this stuff. You don't understand the seriousness of that. especially if you're a person that has no understanding of the Quran and the Hadith. You're not in a position to judge amongst others. And also, the Prophet taught us that if you are put in a position to be a judge, you have to use wisdom. In order to be a judge, not only must you have knowledge and understanding of the Quran, not only must you have knowledge and understanding of the hadiths, but you also have to have wisdom, which is a gift that comes from Allah. And also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that the best of witnesses is the one who brings evidence. So again, a judge has to base his decision on the evidence presented, but oftentimes there may not be any evidence. So he or she may have to use wisdom. And I say she too because women can be judges too. Okay? Oftentimes the judge may have to use their own wisdom because there may not be any evidence. For example, the case that the Prophet gave us. He said there were two women. Two women had been going along with their two sons, and a wolf came and took one of the children away and ate it. The other one said to her friend, the wolf took your child. The other one said, no, it was your child that was taken. So they grabbed the remaining baby and went to David. David was the prophet. David was the king of the land. They took the child and went to David and said, David, decide which child is this. Because the other one was saying, one said that it was her child that the wolf took. The other woman said it was her child. So they asked David to decide who the child should be with. Now there was no proof. Prophet David had no proof as to which child the wolf took and who this one belonged to. So he had to use wisdom. He had to use wisdom. And so what he did was he sent them to his son Solomon, because this was David's way of also testing his son Solomon to see if Solomon would use wisdom. So they went to Solomon and they told him the same story, and David watched to see what Solomon would do. So Solomon had no way of knowing, who was the mother of that child that had survived the attack from the wolf. So what Solomon did was he said, bring me a knife. Everybody's like, what do you need a knife for? So they went and somebody left and brought him a knife. And he said, I'm going to take this knife and I'm going to cut that child in half. And I'm going to give half the child to one of you and the other half to the other. And when he went to raise the knife, one of the women stood up and said, no, 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 don't cut the child. Let her have him. Let her have him. And when she stood up and protested, that's when Solomon knew that the child was hers. Because only a mother would sacrifice giving up her child to save its life. So that was the wisdom that Solomon used, and David was so proud of him. Okay? He said he knew that the real mother would never stand by and let her child be slain. So when that woman stood up and said, no, 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 just let her have him, let her have him, Solomon gave the child to her and said, you are its mother. Okay, so again, this is an example. And the prophet gave us this story, told us the story to show us that oftentimes a judge may not have any evidence to support, to make a decision on. So you have to have wisdom. He has to use wisdom. And that's what David wanted to test his son with, and Solomon passed that test. Okay? So again, this is something that is required to be a judge. Not only knowledge and understanding of the Quran, not only knowledge and understanding of the Hadith, but also the judge has to have hikmah or wisdom. Because oftentimes you'll be faced with a situation in which there is no evidence and you have nothing to rely on but your wisdom. Okay? Here's another case that shows how important it is for the judge to have wisdom. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said a person brought from another person a piece of land, and the person who had bought that land found it in an earthen uh, clay bottle which contained gold. The person who had bought the land said to the seller, "Take your gold from me, because I only bought the land from you. I didn't buy the gold from you. I didn't know there was gold in this land. So you can have the gold." But the seller said, "No, no, it's yours. I sold the land to you. So that means whatever is in that land belongs to you." And they referred this case to a judge. And the judge said, "Okay, wait a minute. You had the land and you sold it to him and you did not know that there was gold in it." He said, "Do you guys have any children?" And one man said, "Yes, I have a boy." And then the other man said, "Yes, I have a daughter." So the judge said, "Okay, marry your son to his daughter. And that way the land and whatever it contains belongs to both of you." So here's another case that the prophet shared with us, showing how wisdom is needed in order to be a judge. Because again, you're going to be a judge is placed in situations where there is no evidence, or he may face with a case like this that's not determined in the Quran or what to do. So you have to use wisdom. Okay, just marry your children to each other. You guys are now family. So that means the land is now part of your inheritance, to their inheritance, and it goes to both of you. Okay. So again, that's the importance of having wisdom when it comes to judging. So knowledge and understanding of the Quran, knowledge and understanding of the Hadith, and wisdom are necessities in order to be a judge. Okay? The next chapter of Hadiths addresses another common question. What happens if you find something? Say you find something, it doesn't belong to you. How long do you have to keep it? What do you do with it? We have a hadith whereas a person came to the prophet and said, "O prophet of Allah, what if you come upon an item that doesn't belong to you, but you find it? What should you do?" The prophet said, "If you come upon something that doesn't belong to you that you find, make an announcement about it for a year and remember how it looks and put it in a safe place. If its owner should come within that year, have him describe how it looks. If he describes it well, then give it to him." And then the man said, "Well, what if the item that you found was an animal, like a goat?" He said, "If you find an animal on your land or something," he said, "take it, because it's yours. Because if you don't take it, the wolf will take it. It can get killed." So, if you find an animal and you don't know who's the owner of that animal, then it's yours. Okay. Then the man said, "Well, what about a camel? What if you find a camel?" And the prophet got angry. He said, "I already answered you about animals. If it's a camel, just let it go, because it's got its own water, it's got its own feet, and it can find its owner." But anyway, the lesson here to learn is, if you find something that doesn't belong to you, what do? You make an announcement. You put it in the newspaper or whatever, and you keep the item for a year. If nobody shows up after that year, then you can do what you want with it. Okay, everybody understand that? And I know one Muslim brother told me one time, he said, "Sister Layla, I came upon a watch. He worked at some place, and somebody left a watch in the restroom, a very expensive watch. Watch is worth about $200. He said, "What should I do?" I told him, "Take it, put it in a safe place, and announce at the company, make a public announcement at the company that the watch was found in the restroom, and whoever it belongs to, if that person comes claiming it's theirs, make them describe how the watch looks. Don't say how it looks, make them describe it. That's how you know who the owner is." I said, if they don't show up after a year, then you can do what you want with it. Well, he did that. His company that he worked for has what you call a magazine, a flyer they put out every month. He put it in a monthly flyer, and a person did come forward saying that he had lost his watch, and he described it, and he gave it back to him. Okay, so that's what you do. If you come upon something, that you found that's not yours, keep it for a year, announce it. If nobody comes and claims it, then do what you want with it. Okay, and also remember, guys, when you're making Hajj, it is forbidden in Islam to take anything that you find when you make Hajj. Say, for example, you're making Hajj and you see a person's watch lying on a bench, leave it there. We don't touch anything that we find when we make Hajj. Just leave it where it is. Okay. We have another hadith here. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "None of you should milk the animal of another without his permission." What is that talking about? Say, for an example, you own livestock. You own cattle. You own cows and horses and goats and stuff. The animal belongs to you. You're its owner. A person cannot come on your property and take milk from your cow without your permission. This is stealing, because that milk belongs to that farmer. That's his property. You cannot ride down the road and stop and see a bunch of cows and say, "I'm gonna go milk them," and you get out your car with a bucket and you go and try to milk somebody's cow. No, you can't do it. You have to have the owner's permission. Because whatever is in the animal's udders belongs to the owner. So that's something to remember. If you're a farmer, you're raising goats and sheep and cows and stuff like that. You're a cattleman. Those animals are yours, and nobody can just ride up on your property and milk your goats and milk your camels. I mean, your camels too. Milk your animals without your permission. We can't do that, guys. That's a way of stealing. That's a form of stealing. Okay? And finally, in this chapter, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also specifies to us that your guests have rights over you. If a person shows up at your door as a guest, they have rights over you. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whoever believes in Allah in the last day should show respect to the guest, to show the utmost kindness and courtesy towards your guests." And how do we do that? If a person shows up at your door, you have the right to house them for a day and a night. Okay? That's courtesy. Hospitality extends for 3 days. Anything after that is a charity. So in other words, say for example, I'm sitting here right now teaching you, my daughter pops up at my door. "Mom, we had a problem. We don't have any electricity. It was a blizzard." Let's say she says, "Oh, there's a blizzard and all our electricity went out, Mom." Okay. She has a right to stay with me for 3 days. I can house her for up to 3 days. After the third day, I don't owe her anything else. Everybody understand that? So that's the right that the guest has over you. The guest has the right for you to put them up for 3 days. They have the right for you to put them up for 3 days. After that, you don't owe them anything. So be careful of that. And again, that doesn't mean like now that means if for a woman, a guest would be my daughter or any family member that's a mahram to me or whatnot. Now, if some man next door knocked on my door and said, "Hey, Miss Nashiba, my electricity went out. That's your problem, dude. You ain't staying in my house." Okay? But if it's my daughter or my grandkids or my mother or someone like that, I have a right to house them and feed them and put up with them for 3 days. You got 3 days to stay with me, then pack your crap and get out. As my mother used to say, you got 3 days. If y'all want to visit me, y'all can stay for the weekend. After that, pack your bags and leave. And my mother used to say that when we were younger. When my brother was away in college, he'd come home from college. You got 3 days. That's it. After that, pack your bags and get out. Go back to school. Okay? So I want you guys to remember that the guest has rights over you, for you to show hospitality towards them for 3 days. Anything after that would be a charity. Okay, so what do we walk away having learned from these hadiths from this chapter? Well, we learned first of all, again, if you find something that doesn't belong to you, if you happen to find something, you make an announcement and keep it for a year. The owner has a year to come and claim it. After that, you can do what you want with it. And also, remember, be careful asking for things that you shouldn't ask for, like to be a judge. A lot of Muslims today want to be judges and give fatwas. You have to be careful because in order to be a judge, this is a serious responsibility. You have to have knowledge and understanding of the Quran, the Hadith, and you have to have wisdom. Because oftentimes you're going to be faced with situations in which evidence is not there. You're going to have to give a decision that is just and fair based on your wisdom. Okay? And also remember, if you are a judge, you cannot make a decision while angry. And also, as human beings, we have to be careful of asking too many questions about things. If we have to ask questions, ask the right questions. Be careful of wasting our money. Be careful of talking frivolously. Be careful of asking questions about things that are not relevant. And also, we learned today that if you are in a position of judging, you have to be careful because there are some people out there who are more articulate than others. They may can plead their cases better because they have the gift of gab, but they may be lying. So we have to be on guard against that. And also remember, Islam teaches us that if you are going to make an accusation against another person, you have to not only swear that your accusation is true, but also you have to have a witness. And if you are a person who has been accused of something, remember that Islam teaches us that you swear an oath to prove your innocence. Your oath to prove your innocence. The burden of proof lies on the accuser. The accuser is the one that has to prove you to be guilty. Okay? On that note, we'll stop right here for today. Tomorrow, we're going to continue with the next chapter, which I think addresses a little bit more about laws in Islam. I'm going to give you a quiz to cover the important things you need to walk away having retained from today's class. Let me also remind everyone that the month is almost over. We're desperately in need of donations. I mean, if you guys would like to continue to be able to come here every day and benefit from these classes to learn Islam and its truthfulness based on the authentic Sunnah, please donate to keep this dawah effort going, guys. So we'll stop right here. If you have any questions or comments, if there's more clarification needed on a hadith or something, please type it on the screen.